All right, serious and silliness outcast. We got a great interview for you. Last time we had on Conservative Ant, and we're going to keep going with conservative podcasts. And we're here with Joe Redden from the Older Millennial. What's up, Joe?
What's up? Thanks so much for having me.
So you're like the smartest person in under 9 seconds that I've ever seen in my life on TikTok.
No, for me, it's a lot of the time the liberals just make it really easy on me. They just say something so they say something so stupid that you're like, wow, this is too easy. I can't resist.
Yeah. Like under 9 seconds, it's like you could decimate anybody. It's unbelievable. So you have
Well,
a
I
you
mean,
have a
it
good.
doesn't take long to embarrass some of these people.
Yeah. We're gonna get to that because I'm not as nearly as good as you, but I've noticed that the majority of conservatives kind of know what's right and wrong, and then the liberals kind of want to drag you into the mud and kind of try and dissect it and make you look stupid if you really don't
Mhm.
know the details. And you, on the other hand, know the details
Mhm.
and know the inner working. So that doesn't work with you. Where with somebody like myself, it's like I don't have an answer. I just know you're wrong.
No, but I mean that's the thing is like that's generally the tactic that liberals employ or leftists employ when you argue with them is they want to nail you down to a single point that they learned
Right.
and they want to ignore the all the context around it. But if they can just get you on that one point, they can be like, "Oh, I won." But it's just about I mean, really it's just about having a general knowledge. Is once you have a general knowledge, then you go from there and research, but I mean, a lot of the time the people you're debating with aren't the I mean they're not the smartest people, they just try to come across that way.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. We're gonna get into it. But your YouTube channel is the Older Millennial,
Mhm.
and you also have TikTok, the Older Millennial. You have a pretty good following on YouTube. You have a fantastic following on TikTok. What was the difference? How come you blew up on TikTok? It was like almost overnight.
Well, so you say I have a big following on TikTok. It's nothing compared. So I am on account number 63. So I started way back in 2020 when COVID and stuff,
Ah,
and I
okay.
I went from 0 to 1.6 million in 6 months. But I
Wow.
wasn't even doing politics then. I was my entire content was helping women understand how men thought,
Ah, the red pill.
and yeah, it's no, not even so much red pill. It wasn't going after women. It was more being like, hey, ladies, please don't think that we think like you because you're
Yeah.
going to overcomplicate us. Because I mean, we're idiots. Like we're like woman hot, woman treat us nicely. I'm happy, right?
Simple. Yeah.
And it was just trying to help women understand that of like, please don't complicate us. You're making it worse. But leading into the election, I made one political video, and because I had a huge following, it went viral, and then they banned my account.
Uh, on
So
YouTube was TikTok.
this is on TikTok. At the time I think I had 1.9 million followers.
Wow. Really?
And so I started doing politics out of spite.
Right. Right. Right.
I was like, I'm going to do politics because, could you cuss on this show?
Yeah. Absolutely.
They were like, I'm going to do politics because fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
what it was. And now I am on account number 63. I've
Wow.
had more than a million followers 17 times. I've been the largest conservative content creator 15 times.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really, really impressive, man. And so because you put out, short clips multiple times a day.
I try to put out between anywhere between 4 to 10 videos a day.
Wow, that's fantastic. Is at this point where it's your full-time job?
It can be. I mean, I still have a real job,
Yeah.
just because my real job pays for, like I travel a lot with my real job, so I really enjoy. I mean, the paycheck's cool too, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really enjoy the all the travels paid for, my healthcare's taken care of. So, I mean, but yeah, I have a real full-time job. I do negotiation for international trade, where I work out the trade agreements between foreign manufacturers and U.S. distributors.
Wow, that's very impressive. My job's not that impressive. I'm a se- I'm a sewer worker in New York City. I'm a blue collar guy.
Mhm.
I'm surrounded by human feces and rats all day long.
Well, I mean, sometimes in the business world, I feel like I'm surrounded by those two things as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's funny is that the blue collar guys get no fucking credit, and we literally make the world go round. Like
Hmm.
you flush your bowl, and nobody has any idea what happens, and it's a whole process.
Well, like
as a,
I'm the only white collar person in my family. I mean, my whole
oh,
family is blue
really?
collar. My father dropped out of high school when he got my mom pregnant with my older sister, and he worked as a boiler room operator at a hospital. He went to that job at 17, and he retired from that job at I believe 68.
Wow.
And I mean, so he did it forever. My mother's a secretary. All my cousins and everything are all in unions up in Philly.
Right.
So I mean, they're all electrical workers, plumbers, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's my background basically. Everybody in my family is electricians. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Philadelphia?
Grew up in South Philly.
Did you
Went
really?
to went to South Jersey for high school because if you want to go to college, you don't want to graduate from high school in Philly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, South Philly. That's funny because that used to be all Italian.
Yes. See, that's the funny thing is people are like, you don't know what racism is. I was like, don't try not being Italian in South Philly. Like, it's like it didn't matter if you were black, Mexican, Puerto Rican. What is if you weren't Italian, you were the others.
Yeah, right. It's the truth. I'm Italian and I grew up in a similar neighborhood, but the neighborhood's changed now. Like I'm sure South Philly changed too.
Mm.
Where Brooklyn, the Bensonhurst Brooklyn is it's very mixed now. It's not very Italian anymore. But
No, South Philly still pretty much stayed the same. I mean, just
really?
because mainly because nobody sold their houses. Like nobody can move in because there's nothing available.
Ah,
Like
okay.
it's just family. It's just family gives the row home over to somebody else, and nobody ever leaves.
Well, that's actually nice to hear. Maybe I'll actually go and visit. I'm sure there's nice restaurants and shops and so on and so forth. All right, so let's jump into it because there is so much that has happened since the election, so much before the election, so much that I can't even. It got to the point where I ran from the Democratic Party. I mean, I literally left my shoes. The first time I ever voted Republican was Donald Trump, Joe Biden.
Mhm.
Before that, when it was Donald Trump, Hillary, I didn't vote. That was the only time I didn't vote in my life. Before that, I voted Democrat in every election. And then it
Mhm.
got to the point where I'm like, these people are fucking crazy, and I can't deal with this anymore. And it was really the trans thing and the child thing that really I was like, I don't want to be affiliated with this party anymore. That
Mhm.
was really and then now what seems to happen is since then it's just a domino effect, but they have this way of trying to twist and turn things. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and we'll start from like the 2020 election. Some people say the 2020 election was rigged. Other people say Joe Biden won it fair and square. I don't know the details. I would think it would be rigged somehow, shape, or form, but I don't know the details. Can you go into that a little bit?
So when it comes to the 2020 election, the big thing with that is 21 million votes that showed up out of nowhere that have never shown up in any other election didn't show up in the next election after that. Like that's what became the most unbelievable thing. I mean, there was also the 3 a.m. shift of votes. I would say that anybody like a good example is like there's elections where you see statistical improbabilities, right? Where things you're like, oh, that's statistically improbable that would happen. However, in the 2020 election, you had statistical impossibilities happen. So,
Mm.
like at 3 a.m., you had, I think it was like 130,000 votes came in. Don't hold me to the number, but there's like 100,000 something votes came in, and 100% of them were for Joe Biden. It's
Wow.
like that's not a statistical improbability. That's an impossibility.
Right.
That's not possible to happen. So we know we can look at that and go, okay. And it was one of those where you can see the graph of like they're competing, and then there was just a straight line for Biden. And you're like, okay, that's fraud. That's very obvious fraud. And so what we found was 21 million votes showed up for Biden in that election that have never existed in any other election at any time and didn't show back up this election. So all signs point to fraud, but the reality is that even if our government knew there was fraud, they'd never admit it because it would destroy faith in the election system if you actually validated that it happened. But I mean,
Right.
it's almost a statistical certainty that fraud happened.
Okay. All right. Now, um, I'm on your side, but let me play devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's say that's true, right? Do you think the Democrats just like how can I say this? I believe, and probably the majority of the people that voted for Donald Trump the second time believe Donald is going down, going in harder now than ever
Mhm.
because of what they dragged them through after the election. You know, the trying to embarrass him with the porno star, trying to arrest him, trying to bankrupt him, and then finally trying to assassinate him. And now he's going hard, and he only has 4 years, and that's really my opinion. Is there a possibility that the Democrats just didn't realize they just wanted him out, but not realizing, hey, look, it's another 4 years. Um, After it's out, we could literally manipulate the media again to say Donald Trump bad, and we'll be back on top, right?
Yeah.
Or is it were they just really that stupid, not realizing that this was going to happen?
Well, I honestly don't think they ever considered they would lose. And by that I mean lose in court and the prosecutions they had against him. And I honestly don't think they thought they would lose the election. Like I thought, because and you have to understand it from a liberal's point of view. If you're like when liberals were surprised, like those of us on the conservative side, when Trump won, we were like, makes sense,
Right,
right? But honestly, like if you're a liberal and you think about it like a liberal, say the only media you consumed is MSNBC, CNN, Harry Sisson, and things like that. There was every indication was Kamala was going to smash him, right? So like, and if that was all the media you consumed and you ignored the conservative side, you legitimately thought Kamala Harris was going to run away with this election.
right,
So I honestly think they were blind to it. They were like, "There's no way they're electing him again." And also, you have to think about in the beginning of this election on early voting days, Republicans saw fraud start to happen and had to sue 27 different times to fix it before we even got to the original election day.
wow,
Like, because they were setting up fake hours at polling places in Pennsylvania. They were denying people the access to the ballots. They were denying watchers the ability to watch. But this time, there were 100 lawyers in each state positioned to just file lawsuits right away because they were like, "There's no way this happening again." And you have some people that did some great work to, in Pennsylvania, for instance, to bring in, the Amish, the Pennsylvania Dutch, get them in there. And I think people were just so committed to not what was the word they used? They make it too big to rig.
right,
Make the victory margin so huge that doesn't matter how much you cheat, you can't win.
right. Now, but what about the people that kind of hold the strings on the left side? You know, the George Soroses and
Mhm.
the State Streets and the Black Rocks and so on and so forth. And uh, are they not? Can they not literally add it up and say control their biases and say, okay, if we do A, B, and C, D, E, and F is going to happen. So
Mhm.
if we make this person a try to make him out to be the bad guy,
Mhm.
inevitably what we're going to make him out to be is a martyr and a god, which is really what happened.
That is true.
But and they did not have the foresight to see that.
No, they expected him to be in prison. Like they fully expected him to be in prison. Like I don't think they because they they filed their first charges against him 8 months after he left office. I don't think in their wildest dreams they thought he was going to be able to stretch that out for 4 years. Like because like I said, they filed charges 8 months. They had him ready to go. Boom, they had him. And the charges they filed, like he hired excellent lawyers who drug it out so that it put them under a time press. And I legitimately think they figured they were going to have him in prison. I mean, he was on the brink a few times.
There was that's the only thing that makes sense, right? Like if you don't consume left wing media, that's the only thing that really makes sense. Because even I said if they keep pushing this, and I'm not, I don't have my finger on the pulse with politics like you do, but just common sense. I'm saying to myself, if they keep pushing this,
Mhm.
they're going to make this guy bigger than what he is. It's going to work against them, and uh, the assassination attempt, I think after that was pretty much, you just lost.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
You missed your mark. You lost your mark. You're not going to get another chance. And that was it. And um, the how bad was the panic? We all knew Joe Biden was in a cognitive decline.
Yeah. I think that became pretty obvious pretty quick.
Yeah. And how, again, they had to be in the bubble until the debate happened. How bad was the panic when that debate happened? Because they didn't know whether to fucking shit or wind a wristwatch. They really didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was huge on the Democrat side. You, for the first time, I'll give Democrats credit. The vast majority of Democrats, they had a little come to Jesus where they were like, "Holy shit, this dude is off his rocker," right? Where they recognized the cognitive decline. And I honestly think for most Democrats, they were shielded from it. I think the people that were closest to Biden knew it for the longest time, and they were happy to have somebody they could control. But I think that debate, it made it impossible to hide, and it put them in a really precarious position where they had to choose somebody new because Biden just didn't have a shot, right? But very few creators, very few social media personalities or even media personalities were willing to go to bat for Biden after that. But we still did have some, like Harry Siston, for instance, talked about how Biden is perfectly fine. He even said Biden won that debate, which
Wow.
is wild. Like the level of delusion required to even think that, right? But on the Democrat side, they went into full blown panic. Because it was too late, really, for them to hold
Yeah.
a primary. It was too late for them to get the pulse of the people of who they wanted, and they were in a position they did not expect to be in.
And so, did they really think that the Kamala thing was going to benefit them, or was it just a Hail Mary pass?
Well, the people that were in charge, the people, whoever the hell was running the country when Biden was, losing his shit, obviously, they just wanted another person they could control. And I mean, it really was a last ditch effort because you couldn't have grabbed Gavin because he would have had to go through the process of withdrawing as governor.
Right.
You couldn't, I mean, they're really Kamala was their best shot at that point
Mhm.
of somebody they could control because I don't think like Bernie Sanders, I don't think you can control him. So I think that was their best shot, and that's what they rolled with. Uh, they kind of were stuck,
Yeah.
with Kamala. I mean, as much as they say they loved her, I mean, she was the least popular vice president in the history of vice presidents. I mean, what does she have, a 92% turnover rate in her office as vice president?
Right.
So,
And
like nobody liked her.
she never even won a vote, even when she ran in the primary. Is that accurate?
She didn't. She dropped out 2 weeks before the first vote because she was polling at 0.04%.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
So
she was set to not win a single delegate.
that brings me to my first like Democratic liberal twist. How can they say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy if they literally put somebody in there that was never voted in, never won a vote? They literally took the president out and shoved her in.
Well, here's the thing that a lot of people get wrong, and I don't mean this on you or anything.
No, it's fine.
Okay, but the Democrat and Republican parties are not in any way part of our government. So just to be clear, they are not part of our election system. So the Democrat, the DNC and the RNC, they are private companies. They might as well be Amazon, Apple, whatever, right?
Okay.
So all they are is they are private companies that we have created the mirage that they're part of our government. So like they don't have to hold a primary because they are not a part of our government. They are not a part of our election system. They are a private company that is choosing the person to run the party. And so that's the candidate we get. Now, generally, the idea is you listen to the voters because you're gonna need them to vote for you in the general election, but they don't have to. Like primaries are not required. These are not part of our government. We put little R's and little D's in front of their names to identify them. But I mean, honestly, Amazon could run a political party and nominate someone, and it would be the exact same as the Republican and Democrat parties.
Really? So I
Yeah.
didn't, again, I did not know that. I'm glad that, one good thing about this podcast I have and this particular channel is a little bit of a variety channel. I learned a lot of shit in a short period of time.
No, but I mean, it's common is we've created this fake image of them being of political parties. They're not. They're just private organizations that we call political parties. That's why you can have the Green Party and the Libertarian and the Communist and all that is
Really?
because these are just private organizations that are privately funded, privately owned. They don't owe any accountability to the American people. They don't owe a primary. They can do whatever they want.
Wow. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next topic because otherwise I'll have you here for like 6 hours. Yeah, yeah. Ukraine and Russia. That's been going on for obviously the last several years. Um, and obviously, Donald Trump is trying to put together a peace agreement. Explain the mineral deal between the Ukraine and Russia and how it benefits the United States if Donald Trump pulls this off. And do you think he's going to pull it off?
So there are actually two mineral deals on the table. So we
Okay.
have the mineral deal that's on the table with Ukraine, where we're looking at 50% of their, of rare earth minerals, and that's awesome and everything. But there's also a mineral deal on the table with Russia, who is the third largest, who has the third largest stores of rare earth minerals in the world. Where Russia was like, look, work with us, and you're going to get way more out of it, right? Obviously, it's hard to trust Russia on these things. I mean, they can renege it on any time, and then we're screwed, right?
Right.
So it's a dance between. But really, what it is that we're not willing to give Ukraine a order of protection. We're not going to commit to defending them like we would NATO. But what we told them was, hey, look, if we have this rare earth mineral deal, we're going to be there helping mine these minerals. We're going to have, Americans on there. We're going to have Americans on
Right.
staff. And Ukraine would then be a huge benefit to America. So basically we're telling them we'll be there and nobody's going to mess with you while we're there.
Right.
And that was kind of the deal. And they didn't want to accept that at first, but Zelensky's coming around on it when he recognizes we're not giving them an order of protection.
Okay. Now, this is why I think Trump is like 3 steps ahead of everybody else. He doesn't have the mineral deal with Ukraine, but he has. So either way, this situation works out,
Mhm.
the Americans benefit from it from the mineral deal.
Yeah, there's no loss. There's no way America loses.
Okay.
He
Now,
put us in a position that whether Russia conquers it, we do a deal with them. Ukraine has a peace because there is no scenario that Ukraine wins this war. Like that's just not a reality. So either Ukraine gets peace and we get 50% of their minerals, Russia wins and we have a deal with them on minerals. So like we're good either way.
now the minerals are. Correct me if I'm wrong. Titanium, aluminum,
Mm-hmm.
the one for the batteries.
Are you talking about could be like cobalt or what is it? It's the same one they mine in the Congo. It's
Yeah, lithium.
lithium. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we're benefiting as, right? And that would
Yeah, I
actually
mean,
help.
those are the rare earth minerals we're trying to get access to. It's the same thing with Greenland. Those are the stuff we want access to in Greenland. Same type of deal.
Okay. All right. Why do you think? I mean, this is obviously going to benefit the United States, and it's obviously going to stop the war between the two of them. Why do you think the mainstream media is trying to sabotage it? Like they're saying things like he's chumming up to Putin. He's Putin's puppet.
Yeah.
Um, uh, why do you think that they're trying to do that? I mean, if it benefits the country and it stops the war, why wouldn't you be on that side? Or is it just literally Orange Man bad and we don't care?
Well, I do. So when it comes to the media, I think it's an orange man bad approach. I think they really do have a visceral and look, Trump has done this to himself quite a bit, a visceral hatred of him. But like I said, he's also done it to himself. He
Oh
has
yeah,
not been the biggest friend to the media. He's been a guy that's talked tons of shit on them
yeah.
and made them illegitimate in a lot of different ways. So they have no good reason to be his friend. But when it comes to the politicians, legitimately, I mean, the amount of money laundering that's going on is you're not going to want it to stop. I mean, even Zelensky admitted.
That's
He
it.
said, "Hey, all that aid you were supposed to send us, we're short about 100 billion."
That's
And
right.
he was like ready to talk some shit about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the reality. I mean, the money doesn't get spent in Ukraine. The money gets given to Ukraine, and then they spend it with American companies who then donate to the reelection campaigns of U.S. senators and U.S.
Ah,
And this is Republicans and Democrats.
okay.
I'm not just putting this on the Democrat Party, but I mean that's how it works.
Okay. So that leads me to the revealing of the scandal. So Doge.
Yeah.
Okay, and Elon Musk is obviously, in my opinion, doing a tremendous job, right? Again, uh, the left wing is really trying to now make Elon Musk seem like the devil himself.
Hmm.
Um, and again, you made me understand because it's basically because it's just going to lose money,
Hmm.
you know.
Absolutely.
Um, But I think the American people at this point, the majority of American people at this point, are literally smarter than that. And the reason why I say that is I would, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. But the birth of social media has really given the truth to what is happening. And nobody's really watching. I mean, you got to be over 50 or over 60 that you're watching, Fox or CNN or whatever the case may be. I get my news from guys like you, Patrick Ben David, so on and so forth. Why go after Elon Musk?
Well, I mean, if somebody like you got to look at it like you're dealing with kids. And if your parents hired somebody to reveal everything you've done wrong and everything you've gotten away with, you're not going to be a big fan of that person,
Right.
right? And so, I mean, the reality is the Doge has to exist because, I mean, legitimately, our government we cannot continue to spend like we do.
Right.
Like it's just not an economic reality. We won't exist as a nation. By 2030, we'll be paying 25% of our GDP in just interest payments. It's just not real. It's just not reality.
Okay.
So, but they also recognize that this money going out the door is how our politicians have built the relationships they have. They've used taxpayer money to massage these relationships and actually cure favor. But and Elon is a challenge to that because one, unlike every other person in government, Elon can't be bought. Like there's nothing you can offer him. He's like, I'm the richest man on earth. There's nothing you can do to persuade me, whether you're Republican or Democrat. If it's bad, it's bad. And and I think it's a combination of they want to keep that money flowing to their special interest, but also they don't want it revealed how much money they're wasting. Because could you imagine in let's just say Trump's third year, we've managed to get rid of 1/3 of our expenses. And it's just through elimination of fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah.
Like that would indict the last 10 years of presidents and be like a really solid what the fuck type of thing,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. So so here's what I've been hearing from the left that they're trying to demonize, how they're trying to demonize Elon Musk. He's going to cut Social Security,
Mhm.
right? That's one. Has that even been on the table, or is that something just
No.
created? Yeah.
No. So the thing was is that they know people don't read bills. So in the continuing resolution, they said it was going to cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut Social Security. None of those were in there. In fact, it actually maintains Biden spending levels, which made it even more difficult to get it through with conservatives than it did with Democrats. That's why the Democrats ended up voting for it because they didn't really have an argument when it came to the continuing resolution because the way it was written was, hey, we're going to maintain Biden's spending levels. The only change is we're going to add $6 billion more to veteran spending, and then we're not changing anything else. There were no cuts in there whatsoever. So they could. That's why Schumer voted for it because he was like, I can't make a valid argument not to vote for this thing, and why the Democrats ended up passing it because they didn't have a choice. But it's one of those like they just they have to paint it as these things. And here's the thing: there is built into the budget $800 billion in cuts to Medicare. Now, I mean to Medicaid. And that by itself sounds awful, right? Like if somebody just came to you and said, "Hey, we're cutting $8 billion from Medicaid, 800 billion from Medicaid," you'd be like, "What the fuck?" Right?
Right.
But I'm sorry, 800 million. But the difference is that all of that is cut from fraud and waste. Like the number one thing is making illegal immigrants ineligible to use Medicare and Medicaid in hospitals. Like I
Mm,
think we can all agree they shouldn't be able to do that, right?
that's right. Yes.
That
Okay.
that
Okay.
saves like 120 billion,
Yeah. So,
right? So it's like it's cutting the bad stuff.
right. Okay. I see. All right.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like it's like you try to save money. Like, how'd you save money? I made my wife only go to Target once every other day instead of every day.
right. Right.
Like you're cutting the bad shit.
Yeah. No, I fully understand now. And it just, okay. And they also call Elon Musk a draft dodger. Uh,
Well, yep. Well,
and
not Elon. They called Trump a draft dodger.
Oh, I thought it was Elon because apparently, from what I heard, he left
Well, he left South
South
Africa
Africa.
before he did his service. But again, I mean, even then there wasn't really a requirement. Like he would have been exempt anyway because of his wealth.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Like they're not sending billionaires to war. Like they're just not doing it.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so like you said, somebody like yourself could break this down so simply and destroy a liberal's argument, right? Like
Mhm.
in a matter of a millisecond. And then they also say that he has a trans daughter that he doesn't recognize.
Well, it's the thing is that he has been as attentive to his kids as they want him to be, right? And that like she's sworn him off. It's not that he hasn't tried to take care of her. She doesn't want anything to do with him, which again, that's her choice.
Right.
But it's not him. It's not on him. He wants to spend time with his kids. That certain. I mean, I don't know the naming scheme of his children. That shit's complicated, but
Yeah, he's got like
that
14
shot.
kids.
Yeah. So that one, it's like she doesn't want to associate with him. I mean, that's her choice, but you can't be like, oh, he's swearing her off.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. And the other thing, last thing about Elon Musk, it's like, all right, the astronauts that just came home a couple of days ago.
Hmm.
And now that was SpaceX that was
Yes.
actually able to do that, right?
Yeah, it was their rocket, it was their capsule, it was their ship. Yeah.
Now, literally, it's getting no attention from the mainstream media. Like
Of course,
nothing.
they even
Nothing.
switched it up, talking about how I have a video of MSNBC talking about how the astronauts were happy to have spent that extra 6 months up there because they're nerds and they love being in space. And it was like you guys like their cope is so hard. He literally, like, he was like, well, let's be real. They were happy to be up there. I mean, they got to spend extra time in space, and it was like, yeah, as their muscles atrophied and their spines got weaker. It's like, what a dumb comment, but that's how they rationalize it.
Wow, that just blows me away. When you have like what used to be liberal heavyweights like a John Stewart and a Bill Maher, like saying, "Hey, look, you guys, this is not working," right? When you have those guys, I think people that just want to hate Trump just want to hate Trump.
Well, the difference is you're talking about liberals,
Yeah,
right? So the spectrum isn't really conservatives and liberals anymore.
right.
Liberals are in the center. So I
Yes,
look at it as like John Stewart and Bill Maher is they've always been liberal. They've always been like, this is liberal, this is my lane. The problem is the Democrat Party has run off so hard to the left, and Bill and John didn't change.
right.
They just stayed liberal, and then they can't even see the Democrat Party anymore. So it's not that liberals are the problem; it's the leftists that are the problem. Liberals still generally believe the same thing. I mean, you'll get some leftists identify as liberals, but liberals are safe people. They're Bill Maher, they're John Stewart, they're Anna Kasparian. Nut job lefties are, you know, like what's his name? The guy from Young Turks.
Oh
Like
yeah,
yeah, like I can't remember
Cenk.
Cenk Uygur,
Cenk, yeah.
Hassan Piker. Those guys. Those are leftists.
Yeah. But if John Stewart could do it and Bill Maher can do it, why won't like CNBC do it, or why won't
Because those people are still
CNN?
dancing for their money.
Okay,
Like
that's what.
Bill Maher and Jon Stewart have fuck you money,
Okay,
right?
okay,
So that's why you see all the people with fuck you money are either in the center or they're more on the right now because they don't have to play that game. But everybody on MSNBC and CNN, they're still dancing for their money.
okay, all right. Now, why are shows like what how do they stay in business if they're getting like no ratings, especially a show like what's the one with Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the
Oh,
girls?
The View.
How does the view stay? I don't know anyone. And I live in New York. I live in Jersey and I work in New York City. Okay. I don't know anyone. I know plenty of liberals that watches The View. Nobody, no one. Um, how do they stay on TV?
Because there's no place else to spend the ad money, right? So like these people are committed to television, right? They're committed to spending a certain ad spend on television, so they spend it on those shows because they want to be shown to support that stuff. And it curries favor. Like I'm sure there's a lot of political promises that are going behind of like, hey, we need you to fill this ad spot on CNN. It'll lead to us, talking about you in our stock show and how you're doing well. Like I'm sure there's a lot of politics that go on behind the scenes,
Mhm.
but legitimately, there's nowhere else for them to spend their ad spend. I mean, they're already committed to pushing their stuff online, but all of that's pretty automated through all the information they get through, Amazon Web Services and Apple and all the information they steal from that to market to people. So, I mean, for the main reason is it's not that expensive to get it anymore. And that's why you see companies like MSNBC and CNN scaling down. I mean, they're firing people, letting them go. I think, yeah, what CNN Plus, their web service lasted for 6 months
Yeah,
before they gave up on it.
yeah.
I mean, and a lot of the time is the people they can get them on good deals because like a person like I forget his name, the bald guy on MSNBC or
I know you're talking about. Yeah,
but
Gus
he's I
Flancy.
mean he's wealthy. He's
Right,
wealthy on his own. So
right.
I mean it's just cheap, really.
Okay. And even though these people have to apologize on live TV from or be sued because they said something, they're literally sued saying that Donald Trump was, convicted of grape, and he
Hmm.
wasn't. I believe was it NBC that had to pay him $14 million?
It was ABC.
It
ABC
was
had to pay that.
ABC, right? And then, from what I understand, he donated that money to a charity, if I'm not
Mhm.
right.
Absolutely.
At that point, I just can't understand. Like, I'm the type of person, like I said, I used to be liberal, and the majority of my views have stayed the same. But even as I've gotten older and I understand life a little better, my viewpoints have changed depending on conservative traditional views like marriage and so on and so forth and blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah, but see, you're I wouldn't even say you're a conservative. I'd say you're what I am. You're a classical liberal.
Right.
You
Okay.
believe in
Yes.
free
Yes.
speech, you believe in the
Right.
Constitution, you believe in family values, but you also believe in that the government is not a good thing and it should be as small as possible and they should leave you the hell alone. Like that's classic liberalism. You're
Right.
anti-war, you're also want to help the poor. Like that's classical liberalism. That's Bill Maher and John Stewart and Anna Kasparian, and that's my thought process. It's just
Right.
we start to look real conservative because they're so fucking crazy.
Yeah. Right. 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 But what I was trying to say is, but then when you see valid points and statistics and they're staring you in the face, my opinions change according to that, because obviously I'm wrong if the stats, numbers don't lie.
Mhm.
If the stats and polls are accurate, um, I'm going to believe what the numbers say and not what
Mhm.
I've believed in the past if I'm proven to be wrong. These people, and I'm talking about people that view.
No, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a
Yeah.
term for it.
Oh,
There's a
really?
term for it. It's called, or at least I have a term for it. It was a term that came from when I used to own gyms. I used to own CrossFit gyms.
Really?
And Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, talked about these people who were so against CrossFit no matter what data you showed them, right? He called it invincibly ignorant. You know, people that are fully wed to live it in the fucking dark. Like, you have to
Yeah.
think about it this way. So if me and you disagree, I should be able to ask you and say, hey, what body of evidence do I need to provide to you to bring you to my way of thinking? Now, if you don't have an answer for me, we don't have to have a discussion anymore because you don't care about your mind being given new information. You are invincibly ignorant. So if you're, and that's the problem is the invincible ignorance of these people where they feel so much, not just that they're right, but they've made these political standpoints part of who they are.
Hmm.
Like who will never ever admit that transitioning kids is bad?
The
Any
parents that
parent
actually,
who has
yeah.
transitioned their kid. Yeah, I mean that's the way it is. They're invincibly ignorant to any new data.
Right, 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 right. I'm gonna say something that might be a little controversial,
You're good.
uh, but that's a very feminine way to think. I mean, did you ever have an argument with your wife or your girlfriend, and you know you're right, you're
Hmm.
100% right, right? And then you're trying to convince her, and you say, "Hey, look, but this is A, B, and C," and they just will not process. They refuse to process it, right? Um,
Yeah, it's one of those do you want to be right or do you want to be happy situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Where I could just ignore her, right?
Hmm.
But when this kind of mentality seeps into the government, that's when it becomes a problem.
Exactly. That type of thinking has a great place in a relationship because it's understanding that it's not worth the win, right? Because you care enough about that person that you're like, look, I will let you just live in your ignorance to just be happy, right? But when you're talking about the government and geopolitics and world hunger and world war, you can't afford to sacrifice the point for other people's happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because I think it was it today that in Portland there was a trans woman that just broke I believe it was some kind of relay race by 400 meters.
Oh yeah, you
The
just
world,
saw her just I mean, the girls didn't stand a chance.
yeah, and they refused to change.
Hmm.
And it's like, how much more evidence do you need? You know, how much more? I mean, I was basically done with Fallon Fox. Like,
Oh yeah, that was rough to watch. Like I watched it
yeah,
and was like,
like, and
Jesus.
and that was like 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, I'm out, I'm done, right?
Like I
Because
don't think I've ever seen people ever cheer a man beating the shit out of a woman like that.
that it was fuck. He cracked her skull, right? I believe he
Yeah,
cracked her
yeah, he
skull. Yeah.
fractured her skull.
Jesus Christ. So
But I mean, it's just that's a man beating a woman. That's what happens.
it's a dickless dude beating a
Yep,
woman. You know,
that's all it was.
it's unbelievable, right?
Hmm.
Um, all right, I could go on a tangent for that, but I just want to touch on something else. I really do because this is such a great interview because you're clearing things up for me that I don't know personally. And the next question I'm going to have is tariffs, right?
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people basically don't know much about tariffs, even me. I mean, I know the what it is, but I
Hmm.
don't know the impact that it will have on the American economy and American companies and the impact that will have on relationships with other countries.
Hmm.
So, you have obviously the left saying that it's going to destroy the economy, and then you have people that are saying in the long run it's actually going to improve the economy. So, if you could just do a short deep dive into what it is and how it works.
So the reality is that I work with tariffs. I mean, that's been my job because what I do is like I'll work for a good example. My last company I worked for, Chinese manufacturer. They manufacture renewable energy batteries in China in Shenzhen, and they want to export that to the United States. Well, they wanted to do it while Trump was in office. Boom, we threw a 30% tariff on them. So now me is working out the trade agreement is I have to talk to distributors and I have to talk to manufacturers and I have to say, okay, there's an extra 30% cost here. How do we mitigate this so the American public is still getting a good price? And sure, the price to the American people goes up a little bit, but that's kind of the intention of tariffs. So the whole idea of tariffs is to make foreign products more in line with the cost of what we pay with American labor. So that the batteries we make here in the U.S. are competitive with the Chinese batteries. And they don't get a better deal just because they don't pay the right amount. So that was the whole idea. So when people are like, it will make products more expensive, it's like, yeah, that's the fucking point. If you want to buy foreign stuff, you will have to pay more. If you want to buy American, you will save money. That's the whole idea behind it. But the whole idea is that, I mean, here's the crazy thing to think about all these people talking about how we're being unfair to Canada or being unfair to Europe or being unfair to Mexico, right? There has not been a single tariff that the United States under Donald Trump has put into place that exceed the tariff the other country has on us for the same product. Like when we put a 25% tariff on Canada, there's not a single product that we put the tariff on that Canada didn't already tariff us more than 25%. Like
Okay.
on our dairy, for instance, they have a 280% tariff. We put a 25% tariff on them, and they lost their damn minds. Right. So the whole idea is that the people that are fighting against tariffs are one of two things. One, they're just fucking idiots who don't understand it. Or two, they don't want to win, even if it's for America. That with Trump in office, they don't want to win.
Right. Right.
And honestly, I think that's what it is they honestly don't want to win.
Yeah. Because like somebody could say, well, I don't care because I want those cheap Chinese products.
I agree. I agree. And that's a real thought process to have. Nothing I totally get why people do that. I get it. They're like, no, I want the cheap stuff. And it's like, okay, but you have to understand that happening, when you allow that to happen, you are destroying American manufacturing. You are destroying employment in the US. You are destroying like the American manufacturing is the only reason why like America really reached its peak in 1973. That was really when we peaked as a nation. We've been in decline ever since then. And the reason we've been in decline is ever since 1973, we have exported our manufacturing for lower prices.
Mhm.
So when we did it from 1973 to about 1979, the big thing there was we exported our manufacturing. It led to much lower prices, led to Americans being able to buy more stuff. That was the boom. But all we were doing was signing our death warrant in the future. And
Mhm.
the only way to bring back the American middle class is to actually allow manufacturing to return to the US. And the only way to incentivize that is to make it more expensive to manufacture overseas.
Right.
So it's a necessary evil for us to pay more.
So it's literally taking a step back to take two steps forward.
That's exactly 100% right. Like it is a step back. Stuff will become more expensive, but you're adding hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new jobs over a few year span, and it has staying power because you have to think like building a manufacturing plant in the U.S. isn't something you can just take back.
Right, right.
Right. And that's the beauty of it is once you get a company to commit to building a manufacturing plant in the US and manufacturing here, that's not something they can just go, okay, Trump's out of office. Let's go back overseas.
Yeah,
Right. They've already committed billions of dollars to doing it. They're not going anywhere.
right.
And that's the whole point is to Trump is trying to force these companies into a place that they can't abandon just because he leaves office.
Okay. Now, at the same time, he's also trying to pass a bill where there's no tax on overtime, no tax on tips.
Mhm.
Um, how far has that gotten? Is that something that's going to come of existence relatively soon?
Yeah, so those are bills. I believe it's HR 408, HR 382. They are separate because Republicans want to do single issue bills. So there's no tax on tip. I believe that's HR. It's either 382 or 482, and the other one's HR 408 for no tax on tips and overtime, right? And currently, though, both those bills are in the House Ways and Means Committee. And I think they would have already been brought to the floor, but we had the CR, we had the budget resolution. There's been a lot of other stuff Congress has been dealing with that were very immediate and had to get done.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely think they're in there, and the reason I think they're going to pass is that if they didn't, Trump would hang Congress out to dry because he'd be like, I delivered you these two bills. I built into my budget resolution how to implement them. So if you don't pass them, Trump has no problem being like, he'll go and do a news conference where he'll have all of Congress and he'll be like, fuck you, fuck you.
Right,
Like
right, right.
he'll call them out. So that's why I think it'll pass just because they don't really like they're gonna kill themselves if they don't.
Well, I hope it
Um,
passes because I work on overtime a lot.
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. It makes total sense. And he's also working on a bill with his commerce secretary where nobody who makes less than $150,000 a year will pay income tax.
Now, how are you confident that within the 4 year span, because it's that he is going to get all this done, the tariffs, the taxes, so on and so forth? But it
Well, the
seems like
biggest
it to me because it's only been what, 2 months?
not even 2 months. Actually, 2 months. 2 months today. Actually, it's been 2 months today. Actually,
Yeah.
but like so first he is moving at light speed, right? And the reason he's moving at light speed is because he knows what the Democrats are going to do. Like you have to understand, and it's only been 2 months, right? But there are currently more than 100 lawsuits pending before federal judges against every one of his actions. Like seriously, I think we're up to 140 something. That's how many lawsuits the Democrats have filed against his actions. Even super lawful actions that are very obvious, the Democrats are filing suit to slow him. But I think he recognized that they were going to do that, and that's why he is moving so fast at what he's doing. And the beauty is we have 2 years where Republicans can do whatever the hell they want. We don't need a single Democrat vote to do shit.
Right.
Right? We have a majority in the House, we have a majority in the Senate. We don't need them for anything. The only thing we need Democrats for are like budget resolutions and things like that. So the Republicans have no excuse. And I think that's going to become a huge thing leading up to the midterms. I think Trump is going to do a lot of stuff in the first year by executive order. And then the second year is going to be Trump going, Congress, you got 1 year left before the midterms to get this shit done.
Right.
And he's going to become the biggest critic of Congress.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes all the sense in the world. All right. Alien Enemies Act of 1798. I'm sorry I'm jumping. I just don't want
No,
to.
you're golden. Please, please. I love talking about all these different topics.
Okay, good. Because I'm trying to like shove 3 pounds of shit in a 2 pound bag, right? So
You're all
um,
good.
he uh, he got rid of a lot of gang members from foreign countries, especially Venezuela, right?
Venezuela, yeah. A particular gang in Venezuela.
Right. And we've seen the airplane drop them back off in Venezuela. We see them go back to prison and so on and so forth. Now these are dangerous, dangerous people that prostitution, drugs, violence. And if you see the prisons they come from over there, they probably don't really worry about going to prison over here. It's probably like a nightclub
Yeah.
for them. I
No,
mean,
prison here is fine.
yeah, it's like day camp compared to the prison there. I mean, I literally saw yesterday that they shove them in one big cell with no mattresses. They're not allowed to stand up straight. You know, they're literally side by side, nowhere to sleep. This is how they live.
Mhm.
Why at the same time? Explain the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. I did watch your video on it, and why are they trying to block it, saying you put it much better than I did, that specific judges are trying to block it.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Alien Enemies Act, the original creation of it was the whole idea of while you're at war with somebody, if their people come into your country but claim not to be combatants, you have the right to kick them out just because. I mean, the whole idea is the only time it was really executed on using was, I mean, like it was really used for horrible reasons. It was used to create the internment camps for the Japanese during World War II.
Ah,
So it's been used badly, right? But the original idea of it is if you have enemies of the state that are in your country and you want to expedite their departure, you're authorized to do so, right? And let's be clear, like that it isn't when they try to say this is unconstitutional. This was literally written and put into law by John Adams, the second president of the United States, one of the founding fathers. If anybody understands the Constitution, it's the fucking dude who helped write it,
right.
right? So like he knows the Constitution. He helped write the damn thing. So it's not unconstitutional. Now, I think where we run into problems is the sending of them to the prison with Bukele, right? That's where you run into issues because is he right to deport them? Absolutely. Is he right to imprison them? Absolutely. There is no case law and no precedent to send them to a prison in another country that isn't their country of origin, right? And that's where the problem came into play. Now, he did it so quick that even if the courts were to somehow say what he did was wrong, Bukele is not giving them back. Like he's gonna be like, I don't even know who the hell they were. He's like, I'll send you 300 random, Bolivians, right? Like he doesn't know. So, those guys are never coming back. But that was where the questions came into play. But I get why Trump did it because he was like, if I send them to this prison, we never have to see them again. He was like, he was played the I'll ask forgiveness rather than permission.
Ah, okay.
But what he did is legal. It's just by utilizing a foreign prison, it's unprecedented.
Okay.
And there's nothing the law hates more than shit without precedent.
Now he needs no permission. This is completely a power of
This
the
is
president.
executive authority. He has the executive authority under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It's clearly defined. The problem is that nobody's ever used that outside of wartime. So while he's allowed to, this is one of those that's going to get up to the Supreme Court because like appellate courts are going to be like, there's no precedent. We can't really rule on it. And they're going to send it up higher. This case will go to the Supreme Court where, I mean, because the Supreme Court's only job is to represent the Constitution. Like that's their job is to represent the Constitution and law. And they are the representatives of the Constitution for the country. So they will rule on it. And it's very obviously legal, but this will be a talking point for quite some time.
Okay. All right. Um. All right. Come. I'm gonna bounce around a little bit more, but the protesters in 2020, when you had Antifa and BLM and so on and so forth, you see the protesters now against Trump, especially in New York City. They don't look as aggressive.
Engaged. Yeah,
Yeah,
engaged.
they
That's the
real
wording I
they
would, yeah.
they really don't look as engaged, which leads me to believe that maybe they're just paid protesters.
Hmm.
So, what's your take on it?
So they've already found so many of like a good example is the Republicans started holding the town halls. We know that Act Blue and other Soros funded organizations organized people to go and protest to create a feeling of protest there. We know that happened. I mean, we had people admit to it. Um, and a lot of the time is I think the energy is gone, not just because they're paid, but because there is no light at the end of the tunnel for them. Right. When they were protesting against Trump, the election was right around the corner.
Right.
And they were like, we're going to make an impact. We're going to change things. In their heads, they recognize they are still 3 years and 10 months away from Trump not being president. So like it's like I don't know about you, but like I love baseball. I love baseball. Man, I have a real hard time watching the beginning of the season because I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Right? It's
right.
182 games.
Yeah,
Bro, I don't give a shit the
yeah.
first 60.
Right,
right? And
right,
that's
right.
where we are. That's where we are in protesting. Is we're in spring training right now,
I got
right?
you.
So it's hard to give a shit, and it's hard for them to give a shit. That's why they have to be paid to do it.
So do you think it's going to get worse as the closer it gets to the election?
Closer we get to the midterms, it'll actually intensify.
Okay, it'll definitely intensify. All right.
Yeah, because they'll actually have something to fight for. But like I said, it's like I mean, if you're in spring training, how hard do you play? Right,
Right.
you're screwing off. You're having a good time. You're going through the motions. You're still there, and that's what the protesters are doing.
Now, do you think they're going to throw gas on the fire like they did with BLM and Antifa and try to
one Hundred
divide
percent.
people? Yeah, they use the same tactics.
Well, because the tactic of the Democrat Party is to create identity groups and then create rules to be part of that group, where you have to hit all these things on the checklist to be part of that group, and that division is how they grow because they can't grow as a whole. Because if you try to grow the Democrat Party as a whole, like try finding someone who cares about free speech but also thinks children should be able to chop their dicks off.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Like so instead you have to get the people who think it's okay for children to chop their dicks off and you grow them. You get the people who believe in free speech and you grow them. And you get the people that think Trump's a fascist and you grow them. And
Right.
then you act like they're all one party. It's just
Mm.
like the
I
LGBTQ,
was
right?
thinking the same thing.
LGB, they are one group used to fighting together.
That's
And the
right.
fucking T's are on the back of them with that whip just saying, I'm with you. And
Yeah.
they're not, right? They're a
Right.
separate group, but they're looped in.
Yeah. Okay. So I that fully makes sense. So I'm gonna go off on I'm gonna this is a little bit of a different topic, but I believe you have good insight. There's been a lot of crime in the inner city. Uh,
What?
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah. There's been a tremendous amount of crime in the inner city, mainly due to like democratic policies and so on and so forth. In New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia. You go down the list. L.A. You've also had things like the fire in Hawaii and in North Carolina, the hurricane, right? And then you had the fire in Los Angeles. Now I'm 48. How old are you?
I'm 41.
Okay, so almost the same generation. I'm
Hey,
considered
look,
Gen.
you look younger than me. I'll give you that. You look definitely. If you're 48, you're a young looking 48, brother.
Thank you very much, sir. But I'm considered Gen X, and you're an older millennial. It's basically the same shit.
Hmm.
When we were growing up, when terrible things happened, you had celebrities and people that got together and tried to help, and it was on a world stage. And I could go down the list. I mean, every year you had the Jerry Lewis Telethon, you had Hands Across America, you had the song "We Are the World," you had Live Aid. I mean, you could go on and on. You had even, and here's the thing: Whoopi Goldberg was part of the Comic Relief, which it
Hmm.
was every year, on and on and on. And even when it comes to the inner city, you had major players in the hip hop world, in movies, like Spike Lee, like sending a message out there, like, "Hey, look, this is not a good way to develop our inner city and our kids." And they would, there was plenty of music and people outspoken and movies that were reflecting what was going on. Why do you think that has come to a screeching halt and that just doesn't happen anymore?
Well, one, I think both your generation and my generation are more affected by music than any other generation before. I
I
think our moods are set by music. That we hear a song from
Yeah.
our childhood, our whole day is good.
Yeah. Yes.
And like literally, we hear one song and we're like, ooh, because we remember how it affected us when we were young, and
Yeah.
we're good for the day, right? So I think one, we're way more sensitive to it, right? Of the lack of that musical unification of the American people, right? Of the entertainment of it, and I think the reason you don't see it anymore is one, social media and the vast amount of information we have demystified the entertainment world, right? Like before, movie stars were these untouchable human beings that lived in this glitzy world of glamour that we could, we just thought about as amazing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And we have such access to them now that we recognize they're normal people with normal issues, and generally they're more fucked up than we are.
Yeah, right.
right? And when it comes to the music world, we learned so much about the music world that we recognize that the artists are being ripped off and they're not making money and the and all that different stuff and like having access we have access to them 24/7. So I think we've demystified that a little bit to the point that they don't have the same effect as artists that their music does. Right? And also the I think the biggest problem is that industry in general is focused on targeting people. Like we're like the music industry used to have to put their stuff out and find an audience. Now it comes with a ready-made audience. They've got Amazon Web Services information of exactly who to send it to, and they're focused on the money of it rather than the putting it out to the people.
Hmm.
So it just doesn't have the same effect anymore. Where I mean, for the music companies, because it used to make them money too, but now I don't think they think of it that way. They think about making their money, and they don't care about the greater good. Like and generally that's a huge problem is that there is no thought of the greater good. Like
Right.
I don't know anybody that in the entertainment world who honestly cares about like the term always is planting trees under whose shade you'll never sit,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know anybody like that anymore. And
Yeah.
that in prior generations that was there. That was people going, I am going to do something that does not benefit me, but it will benefit my children and my grandchildren. And I think we've lost that as a
Yeah.
nation.
Why do you think we've lost it? Because like you can't, nobody could convince me, especially after the LA fires, that Taylor Swift could not fill a stadium and donate all the money to
I
the LA
agree.
fires. Why do you think it's, do you think, why do you think
So
it's lost?
so the real reason I think that is that the reason I think that's happening is crises used to happen once, maybe twice a year, right? Like we didn't know all the bad shit that was happening in the world. We knew what the media told us, and we knew what affected us, right? So you had the Challenger explosion and
Right.
things like that. But we live in a world where the fucking Challenger's exploding every day.
Right. Yeah.
Like everything is painted as the biggest problem in the world every day. So we've become numb to crises
Hmm.
where it's just there's something I could look up in the news today and make you think it's the worst thing that ever happened to our country,
Right.
right? That wasn't a possibility then. So when a crisis happened, they capitalized on it. They said we're going to come together because the whole country was like, "Holy shit, this is awful. We
Yeah.
need to come together to do something." But now we're so overloaded with crises that we don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's numbed us to it.
It bothers me because it's creeping down even into normal community. You
Hmm.
know, when you and I were growing up, you were growing up in South Philly, and I was growing up in Brooklyn. If there was a problem in the community, people helped.
Oh, it
If
was everybody's problem.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it seems like that's adaptive. That's adapted to the general world and the world in general. Um, when I was a kid, if like that scene in A Bronx Tale where those bikers came in, that was true. If there were strangers that came
Yeah.
into the neighborhood and they caused or might have caused a threat, they were exited quickly.
Yeah, but think about that scene in 2025. Here's what happens.
Right,
That scene in 2025, those bikers get the shit beat out of them.
right,
They immediately go down to a local police station and find lawyers and sue.
right.
Right? That's the real world. Like people don't
Yeah.
take ass kickings anymore.
No, you're
Like you
right.
get an ass kicking, you're suing. If
Right.
you give the ass kicking, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's no respect for people who are doing the wrong thing for the right reasons anymore. And more than anything, I mean, we're just you got to understand we were raised in the most spoiled times in the history of our nation. I mean, we were raised in a period where we honestly thought it was just going to keep getting better because it got better every year of our childhood.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
year you were like,
You're right.
"Holy shit,
Yeah.
it just keeps getting
Yeah.
better."
Yeah.
And
You're
then
right.
we hit the mid 2000s, the aughts as they call them. We got around to 2010 and we were like, "Ooh, shit's not getting better anymore."
Right.
Right? Shit's getting more expensive. Things are getting smaller. but it's not actually getting better. Like we haven't had anything to aspire to since we went to the fucking moon. I mean, the
Right,
only
right,
thing we've aspired to since we went to the moon was destroying Taliban, destroying Al Qaeda, and that's not really something to aspire to.
right, right,
So,
right.
but I mean, we were spoiled growing up. We really were. We were raised in the best possible time to be raised, and I think we as generations Gen X and millennials, we are having trouble living and raising our children in a world where it's not awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It just I wish somebody took some initiative that has some kind of pull, like I gave to Taylor Swift, uh, because it should come from the top down. Like
Hmm.
especially in the inner city. I mean, I believe the stat is 13% of the population is African American, and it's 58% of the murder rate in the country.
It's actually worse
It's
because
worse.
because you have to think 13.5% of the population is black, right? But the problem is that 80% of the violence that's committed from the black population is committed by men,
So it's a
right?
little
Which
bit
which
rampant.
represents about 7% of the
Yeah.
population. So
Right. Right. Right.
what you're looking at is 62% of the violent crime in the country is committed by 7%.
Right.
Like
Right.
that is a scary stat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't believe that Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, Eddie Murphy can't get together, do a special on Netflix for free,
Hmm.
and send a huge message that this has to stop. And it just it when we were growing up, that was constant. That was and it just doesn't. And we live in this we live in a atmosphere where nobody cares, nobody gives a shit, as long as it doesn't happen to me, and I don't care. And it's basically, we've seen it happen with it, just it's the breakdown of society. We've seen it happen. Marriage is shit. Kids
Hmm.
are not turning into responsible adults anymore.
Hmm.
It's neighborhoods are basically being ransacked with, crime and illegal immigrants and homeless, and nobody does anything anymore except maybe leave.
Yeah, really. I mean, because one of the biggest things about it is that we as a nation stopped striving to do things for the sake of doing them.
Hmm.
No, like I mean, there's always been times throughout our history where we as a nation chose to do something just to do it, just to be like, fuck you, we're doing this, right?
Right.
I mean, whether it was national parks or national monuments or going to the moon or I mean, there's so many things throughout our history that we've done just because we were Americans and we were going to do it.
Hmm.
And again, now the problem is, I think you said it perfectly, is that people are just looking out for themselves. And what comes from that is a lack of prosperity. When
Right.
America
Yes.
is thriving, everybody is willing to be the nicest person in the world and help everyone.
Yeah.
When you're worried about your own struggle, you barely have time to think about anyone else. And it's also an isolationist build, like ever since COVID, like working from home, like I worked from home long before COVID. And I can tell you that it destroys your community and friendship circles
Right.
because you have to find rather than being forced into social situations where you learn everything going around you see it now you do that like that's the instead of that being 80% of your time now that's 20% of your time if
Mhm.
you choose like you legitimately could work from home and never interact with society. You could get your groceries delivered, get
Right.
your food delivered, get everything delivered to you,
Right.
and you don't have to interact with society so you don't care as your neighborhood burns down around you.
Right. No, you're
As long as your
absolutely
house doesn't catch fire.
right. 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 But the proof is in the pudding. And here is something else that nobody sheds light on. And coming from, New York and living in New Jersey now, the communities that still act like that still operate like that, flourish.
Hmm.
Asian communities, Indian communities, Arab communities, Hasidic Jewish communities, they flourish. They invest in themselves. They look out for each other. They look out
Well,
for
that's
the.
because they still have the us against them mentality. They
Okay.
still have the us against the world mentality. I mean, when you're a small community, like Italian communities in Philly, they thrive. You know why? Because the rest of the city isn't something they recognize. And they're like, you're not going to fuck up our section.
Okay.
Same thing with Italian neighborhoods in New York. Like I know when you walk into an Italian neighborhood.
Not anymore. Not it's gone now, man. I'm
But
telling you.
there's still sections where you could literally look at the buildings and go,
Yeah, I
Italian
understand.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
And there's a
maybe even
reason it's that way.
yeah, maybe in Philadelphia, but I I went, you know, what's funny is, and one of my pet peeves of social media is the guys that are from Brooklyn and they over the top, you know, have the accent and they dress with the pinky rings and there's a whole bunch of them. And it drives me crazy because they're convincing everybody that those neighborhoods in Brooklyn and New York are still the same. And it's like there is this famous pizzeria restaurant in Brooklyn that's been there for over 100 years. It's called L&B Spumoni Gardens. Okay, right in the middle of my neighborhood. It is the food is amazing, and these guys, I forgot. There's a bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them. They film out there. They put it on their pot. They put it on their Instagram. They put it on their YouTube, and they have the Cadillacs and the pinky rings, and you know, and they're eating and they're hanging out and they're shooting the shit and playing music. I went there with my wife to eat last year for her birthday. We were the only Italian people there.
Mhm.
The whole neighborhood is not like that, and it's just there were black people, Spanish people, Asian people, Jewish people. There was,
Mhm.
it's not, it's just it's gone. That
Yeah,
neighborhood is
that
gone.
identity that the
That
neighborhood
identity
had.
is gone, and you know these guys are like, it just annoys the shit out of me because one, they look like fools. They really do,
Yep.
right? And what's funny is that if you know anything, what's funny, Joe, is that I interview a lot of former mafia figures on my show. And when shit really started hitting the fan, like after 2000, and they all started getting locked up, the rules were that they had to really travel under a low profile. So no more tracksuits, no more pinky rings, no more.
So the culture those guys are defending doesn't exist to
Yeah,
them
yeah,
anymore. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
more of a they become a caricature of what they're trying to represent.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
I'll tell you, like there's actually a discussion I had with a guy from the Bronx, and we were at dinner. He was a friend of one of the people I worked with, and he was like super Bronx, and we got to talking, and he would talk negatively about stuff in the Bronx while also going, like representing it and being like the
I know
Bronx is amazing,
exactly.
the Bronx is shit. But what I told him was, I said, if you're gonna be proud of where you're from, if you're gonna proudly rep where you're from, you better be proud of where you're from. Like, and what I explained to that was like, here's the thing: if you're gonna represent the Bronx and you're gonna act like it's a good thing to represent, I should be able to send a stranger to the Bronx and he should be able to appreciate what you do.
Right.
But if the only thing you can see in the Bronx is a history that's built in your head, it's not a world that actually exists.
Exactly.
Then
It's
then that
exactly.
Bronx you're representing doesn't exist anymore.
That's right.
So stop representing it.
Yeah, you're right. That's
You
exact. That you couldn't have said it better. That is that. I'm actually going to steal that from now on.
All
All right.
good.
All right. Last question. And then I'm going to let you go because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No,
So,
you're good. I this is awesome. You're great to talk to.
oh, okay, cool. Who is Harry Sisson? Who is Chris Mowry? I don't know who these people are, and they got on my radar through you.
So they're social media content creators that they start. Here's the thing: I will give Harry Sisson credit. So what generally happens with liberal political creators on the platform is generally they get really big doing something else. Right. Like a good example is Jolly Good Ginger got really big doing TikTok tea, talking about people. And then he converted over to be a political creator. Pearl Mania got big doing rants and then converted over to be a political. Harry Sisson is the only liberal content creator, political content creator who got big doing that. So, more power, excuse me, more power to him, more respect to him. But now they are bought and paid for. So when it comes to and they're rich kids, which gives them a weird perception of the world. For example, like Harry. Harry wasn't born in the US. Harry was born in Singapore. He was raised in Dubai, raised in Dublin, and then came over here when he was like 18 or 19. Right? Like he came over here really late. And now he is bought and paid for by Midas Touch, Act Blue, the DNC. Same thing with and Harry's dad is worth like 55 million. His mom's worth like 20 million. And then you have Chris. Chris's dad is like a huge environmental lawyer worth tens of millions of dollars. So these are people playing the part of representing the American people, the American left. and they have been shown to be so unbelievably disingenuous and so fake that they've kind of become a laughing stock.
Hmm.
And then recently they've fallen into a lot of controversy, which started out with manipulating women into sending them explicit photos, but now has morphed into working with people who are taking advantage of children. And it's
Really?
slowly, well, again, this is that part is still allegedly.
Hmm.
Like a good example is Harry and Chris worked with a guy named Camille. Camille founded a company called M Pulse, which is a social media company. And they found people found text messages between Camille and this 14-year-old autistic boy that were way more explicit than any conversation with a 14-year-old kid should be. And Harry was made aware of this. And after Harry was made aware of it, he said he wasn't going to work with him, but then ended up becoming his chief of staff. And then Chris went to work and they both still work there. Harry's still the chief of staff of this dude's company. And the thing is that ever since this expose of Harry has come out, Camille has disappeared from the internet. Like his LinkedIn is gone, his Instagram is gone, everything
Yeah.
about him online is gone. And when you're the owner of a social media company, you don't really disappear from the internet.
Right. Right.
Right? Like that only happens for a reason. That doesn't happen accidentally. So
Right.
there's a lot going on with it where these people are the actual opposite of what they claim to be, and that's being revealed. And that I mean, and that's the reality is that, when you're an actor, sooner or later the real you shows through.
Right. Okay.
Right. And let's be real. The currency on social media, it's authenticity.
That's right. You're 100% right. You're
And when you're
100%
not,
right.
so that's what's really eating them up is
Yeah.
the hypocrisy, the lack of authenticity, and maybe the fucking felonies if we keep going with it.
Jesus. It is the child thing is just way too common.
Mhm.
It's just way too common, and I can't think. I can't think of anything more horrible.
Mhm.
Even death isn't as bad.
Oh wait, I have to tell you this. So
Okay.
we were on a live the other night because you're talking about the protecting children, right? We were on a live the other night. We were discussing the trans issue about people transitioning kids. We had a guy come up. We had kind of morphed away from that a little bit. And he was in a relationship where he had a woman, he had one kid that was his and hers, and then there were two kids who were just hers. Right. And he talked about how, we asked him, we're like, well, she wanted to transition the kid because he had said transitioning kids is bad. And I was like, cool. That's just something we can agree on. I said, well, what if she tried to transition one of the kids you're not in control of? And he said, well, what would I do? And I said, okay, well, let's change the question a little bit. I was like, you think transitioning kids is abuse? He said, yeah. I said, okay, cool. So if you're with her and she's allowing somebody to abuse those children, would you be willing to put your relationship at risk to protect that child? And he went, I was like, bro, wrong answer.
Really?
I was like, the fact that you had to hesitate. And I told him, I said, that doesn't mean you're a bad man, but what it means is you're a weak man.
Right.
Because
Yes. 100%.
your thought process was, how does this affect me? When it comes to protecting children, there is no how does this affect me.
Yeah.
This is, I will protect this child.
Yeah.
And the fact that he hesitated showed that we have that sneaking infiltration of just bitch ass motherfuckers, and
It's
we have to fight them, right? And that, but it was a great example of it, where it was just like you are probably a good guy, you probably protect and provide,
well.
but you're weak.
That's what it is, and that's probably why he married a girl with two kids.
But I also told him, I said,
I hate
I
to say
also
it, but it's
no, but I
fucking
also
true.
said do you know the reason she doesn't let you be the father figure to those kids? Because she also recognizes you're a weak man.
That's right. That's it. That's 100%,
No.
100% accurate. And it's just that will lead us to another topic where it just blows me away how for some reason men have been emasculated, but women have embraced those men that are emasculated as husbands, as boyfriends. It just you would think,
Yeah, but that explains the divorce rate.
you're right. You would
Because like
think,
here, I'll put it this way: if I gave you a car for $10, right, you're gonna take the car.
yeah,
But you know that motherfucker's breaking down, right?
right,
But you're gonna take the car, and that's what these men are. These men are $10 men that are
right,
breaking down and they're leaving them behind to go find other ones.
yeah,
And instead of having one car that you drive for 20 years that
right,
you
right,
paid good money for, now you have 10 cars you drove for 1 year each.
yeah. It's just it blows me away because, you know, I grew up with very manly men.
Mhm.
My father, my brothers, my grandfather. These
That's
guys
the
were,
Gen X generation. You get your ass
yeah,
kicked if you're not.
yeah, right, exactly, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And uh, I see it even today, and I see it especially. My other channel is a bodybuilding channel, and
Nice, nice.
it's
I
exclusive.
will not make an appearance on that one.
It's exclude. That's why if you go to my TikTok, you see bodybuilding stuff and you see the interview stuff.
Gotcha.
But it is exclusively um, bodybuilding, and being in that world, you see it. You see these girls that put their bodies together and look incredible,
Mhm.
and then you see the guys that they are married to or boyfriends, and they're basically guys that are just puppies.
Yeah.
They just follow them around.
Mhm.
They just, you have to be on their page. Otherwise, there is no compromising. And I see it all the time. And it's like, you can't tell me that you're attracted to that. You can't tell me that, you work so hard on your body and looking good. And you're surrounded by men that are big, muscular, alpha type guys. And this guy with the dad bod and the baseball hat that's holding your makeup bag for you backstage so you can get ready for your contest, and literally holding your mirror for you so you could see yourself. You
Mhm.
can't tell me that turns you on. You can't tell me that invokes
But it
emotion.
but it doesn't turn them on. Like that's the thing. It's not like they've gone beyond the women have become a lot of the times utilitarian, where they're like, this is a means to an end.
Mm,
Right. And here's the thing, like I used to own a bunch of gyms. I was a trainer. I've trained Olympic athletes, CrossFit athletes.
okay.
And in that
You know
world I
exactly what I
have,
mean. Yeah.
yeah, I know oh my God, like you see like bring your spouse or something to the gym. And you see these women that are just pristine built, like they put in the work, and then her
Yeah.
husband shows up and you're like, what the fuck? Like,
How does that?
it just throws you. You're like, well, this dude can't even squat correctly. And
Yeah.
you,
Right.
you, however, are doing clean and jerks at an Olympic level. And
Right.
it's wild to see.
Yeah.
But again, it's utilitarian at that point. It's they are looking for the easiest path to fill a role.
That's
And
right.
I think then once they advance beyond that, those people are thrown to the side.
Yeah.
Like they're replaceable.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
but I mean that's the reality is that a lot of women, especially successful women, they're looking for like my friend called it a dick on display is what they're looking like.
yeah.
Something that just shuts the hell up and is exactly what you need from them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I'm gonna tell you one quick story since you are into fitness and you know who these people are a little bit. You obviously know who Ronnie Coleman is, right?
Oh, of course.
Of course, yeah. He's basically the greatest bodybuilder that ever walked the planet.
Well, Arnold would have beef with that, but I'll give it to Ronnie.
Okay, all right, yeah. One of two, right? It's one
Yeah,
of
yeah.
two.
No, no. I mean, Ronnie's amazing. He's a
Yeah.
he's an absolute godlike figure.
Yeah, he's in the top, two. Let's put it that way. So, he had this girlfriend for, he had plenty of girls and he's got plenty of kids, but he had this one girlfriend, during the time where he was Mr. Olympia. And she happens to now be a trainer at the gym I go to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And she's married now. And when her husband comes in, you go, no, no, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way in the world. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's there.
Yeah.
You weren't with a bodybuilder.
Yeah. Yep. You were with the
You were
bodybuilder.
with. It's just, and I'm
But
like,
again, can you imagine what being with Ronnie Coleman is like?
no, I can't.
Like, I mean, she
Especially
might
then.
just be with that motherfucker for a break. Like,
Yeah,
go, like, yo, this dude is willing to eat fats. It's
yeah,
wild.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like-
yeah, yeah. Right, right, right. Especially back
I
then.
have to introduce you to a friend of mine. She used to be this tiniest thing at my gym. I mean, she was, when I say tiny, I mean, she was that tiny thing that wanted to clean and jerk, wanted to snatch, wanted to pull the heaviest deadlift. And a good gust of wind would have took her away.
Right, right.
And she dedicated herself to becoming as strong as humanly possible. She got into bodybuilding. Because she married a a bodybuilder.
Okay.
Like they are, and I think because you've seen the bodybuilders marry the normie, right?
Hmm.
I think that the reason why their relationship is so good is they are, and this is I think what a lot of people miss out on because finding a top level bodybuilder,
Hmm.
being a top level bodybuilder, super difficult,
Oh,
right? Meeting and falling in love with another top level bodybuilder, even harder.
yeah. Right.
But
Right.
they have done it, and I think that relationship is better than anything else because you'll never understand the struggle of a bodybuilder without being one. And
Right.
I think there's nothing that they could go through that would fuck with that relationship because they are so in tune with each other of how hard the road to get to where they are is.
Yeah, and what's funny is that when you go through crisis together, it usually
Yeah.
pulls you closer.
Yeah, it's like foxhole buddies.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
never going to be closer to the
exactly.
guy you
Right.
got blown up with. And bodybuilder's life is torture.
Yeah, it
It's
really
like
is.
I tell people all the time like as far as like an athlete, no shit talking to bodybuilders, but as far as like athlete goes, it's I wouldn't say it's the top level athlete, but as far as dedication,
Yeah,
there's nobody more dedicated than bodybuilders
yeah. No,
because
I
it does require that. It requires okay, my walk to the mailbox to get my mail is going to burn how many calories?
right.
Like it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much that goes into
Yeah,
it.
you almost have to be a little nuts. You have to be a
You
little. You really
I
do.
wouldn't say you got to be a little. I say you got to be full on batshit crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
But in a great way, like your dedication is to having the perfect physique and being the perfect version of yourself,
right.
and that takes a lot of sacrifice, takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Joe, it was a pleasure having you on, man. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me, man. I had a great time talking with you,
We'll
and like
definitely.
I said, I didn't know what to expect because I'd watched your video, your interview with Ant, and I was like, all right, this could go 50 different ways. Who knows how this goes?
Well,
But
one thing.
Ant's always so animated
Yeah,
and
yeah.
brilliant. Like I love that man.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I always, no matter who comes on, um, I always show respect to.
No, no,
You
and
know?
same to you. Like you're the one running the show, and like, look, here's the thing. I know those aren't statues behind you; those are trophies. So I know
Right?
you
Yeah,
put in
yeah,
work,
yeah, 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 yeah.
or you're a very good thief.
Yeah, right. Anybody who comes on, I show respect, even if I don't agree with their ideology. I still show respect. That's always been my style. I can't be one of these, gotcha moments podcasters. It's just not in me. Plus, I get too emotional. I did have one guy on that I hate. It was on my other channel, and it was a horrible interview because I hated him, and you could see it coming through like nobody's business. I and it was just I couldn't. So that's
Well,
my
that's the thing I think a lot of people have a problem with, especially with TikTok. Is like I will have a live, and the entire intention of the live will be not to inform, not to argue, not to debate. I will be there because like I have hundreds of thousands, millions of people that follow me, and I want to interact with them, right? But all the haters will come in and be like, debate me on this, debate me on. I was like, I don't know if you guys understand this, but when you come to my live and you hate me, that's like going through the TV, finding a show you hate
yeah
and leaving it on.
yeah.
Like go to a channel you like.
I don't understand
And
that.
but people go and find reasons to be pissed off. And it's
Yeah.
like, don't do that.
I don't understand it. There's plenty of shows I hate and I just skip it, whether it's
Yeah.
podcasts or anything. Yeah, and I see it all the time. Joe, thank you very much. Joe, do you have an Instagram?
I do. Is so my stuff on X and on Instagram is Team FU Joe.
Team
It's
Future.
Team EFF, the letter U, and Joe. Because when I ran my gyms, I used to train some of these top level athletes, and they said my training program was trying to kill them. So they started like talking shit about like he's trying to kill me, and they would put hashtag Team FU Joe because my name's Joe,
Okay.
and it was just a joke. I ended up making a whole clothing line, a whole supplement line out of it. So it was fun. It became my brand. And when I originally started on TikTok and social media, I used Team FU Joe.
Okay, so it's Team EFFU Joe, basically.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is.
All right. I will tag you on pretty much everything that comes out.
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna dice this up, and I'm gonna pull the whole thing out on YouTube, and then I will put it on Instagram and TikTok, and we will definitely be in touch. I really want you back, man. It was really
Yeah,
informative.
just let me know when you do. I will. What I'll do is I'll share it on all my social media so people have access to it.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Have a great night, man.
No, thank you for having me, brother.
You got it.